Hi, my name is Chris Shea. I am a financial advisor with VPS Financial Services, and you are checking out a video on my financial education series, which asks the questions. A lot of questions, but this one in particular for this video is, are you more worried about debt or wealth? And why would you even ask that question? Should be next thing comes out of your mouth, right? Why would anybody be concerned about debt or wealth, and why is there a difference? I'm going to talk to you about this, but first we're going to run through the start of the presentation, go through the agenda, go through the ground rules. I'll introduce myself, tell you a little bit about why this came about in this discussion I want to have with the world, because I really think it's an important one that people don't think about often enough. Okay, so the whole goal of this presentation is, what do you want to learn or understand about debt reduction versus wealth accumulation, and why do you have to choose? Because you don't have an unlimited amount of money, right? Essentially, if you had an unlimited amount of money, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Okay, so the objectives: we're going to define debt, going to define wealth. I'm going to ask you how you feel about debt, because debt does incur a lot of feelings. Money is emotional. You should have emotions around debt. It's totally normal. If you feel like you're the only person that has emotions around money, look around. Everyone gets emotional about their money. Okay. What's your tolerance for risk? That's another question you got to ask yourself. Are you in this for the long term? What's your short-term goals versus long-term goals? And then we're going to go through a real-world example that is from my life, and go through debt pay down versus investing, and show you the pros and cons of both, and let you have information for you to make a better choice about which one you want to do. I'll talk about the takeaways. All right. But before we get into that, again, I want to introduce myself, Chris Shea, financial advisor with BPS Financial Services. It says it right there. I believe my approach adds a broader perspective to all we do and provide increased benefits to my clients. This whole presentation came about because I was working with a new client. They were talking about how they were spending an additional couple $100 a month towards their mortgage at 2.75%. And I asked them a question of, would you rather be out of debt or would you be wealthy? And they looked at me and said, what do you mean? I pulled out a calculator, I ran through some quick numbers and showed them the difference, and they were very impressed. So I said, why don't we educate everyone? We'll go through a real world example of kind of what I've gone through, and some historical numbers, so that you could actually have a real perspective on the potential of debt reduction versus wealth accumulation. Okay, and again, I'm going to ground it in some real world examples, right? But the first thing we're going to ask is, we got to define debt and wealth, right? So what is debt? That's the first question. All right. I went to Wikipedia, I went to Investopedia, and cobbled together a definition that I think works very well. So I'm going to read it out loud because some people can't read red. But debt is an obligation that requires one party, the debtor, to pay money or other agreed upon value to another party, the creditor. Debt is a deferred payment or series of payments, which differentiates it from an immediate purchase, right? You put your money in your credit card, you pay down your credit card minimum every month. That's debt. You get a mortgage on a house, you get a car loan, that's debt. Debt is debt. It's not good or bad. Your use of it is good or bad. Okay. Next question. What is wealth? Again, went out, did some research on the internet, found a couple of examples that I think might work, and put them together. So wealth is the abundance of valuable financial assets or physical possessions, which can be converted into a form that can be used for transactions. Your house, your car, cash money in your pocket, wealth, art, music collection. Lots of things can contribute to your wealth. Okay. Now I've got the definitions down. Again, I mentioned that you should have an emotional feeling towards wealth. Okay. And I'm just going to ask some questions, because these are things I hear a lot from people about how they feel about debt. So you got to ask yourself, is this how you feel, right? Do you feel anxiety? Does debt make you anxious? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders because you have debt? Does debt stress you out and you can't handle it? Do you lose sleep worrying about your debt situation? People do. Ask yourself if you're one of them, and reevaluate your relationship with debt. Okay. Because debt is just an item. It can be used or it can be abused. Okay. Again, I talked about this part. Our relationship with money is emotional. Hopes, fear, guilt, shame, they all play a significant role in your financial life, right? And some of the things that you were taught as rules of money might not actually be the rules of money that you thought they were the way it should work. Because there's no one rule of money. Everything is circumstantial, okay, and situational. Depending upon your circumstances, there are different ways you should interact with different things to give you the best results, okay? All right. Feelings, again, can be tied to a lot of things. Our upbringing. Our parents have a big influence on how we look at money. I know that I was fortunate enough, my grandfather had me read him the stock market when I was a kid. So I learned about the bid, the ask. I learned about dividends. I learned about a lot of things around the stock market. Not everything was perfect that he taught me either, but I was exposed to it early and got a good education. And my parents helped me with savings and things like that and having a job. So I get exposed to money as an upbringing. Our environment. We've all got cell phones. It's our environment, and that's now the world. And sometimes those influences are not always the best things. One-click shopping online, it gets delivered to your house. You get that adrenal rush, endorphins from clicking on that thing and buying it. Is in your best interest, right? Money messaging in the world. If someone's advertising that they want you to do something with your money, you've got to ask yourself, is it in your best interest or is it in their best interest to make money off of you? Right? And it could be both. They could make money and it could be in your best interest, or it might not be in your best interest, but it certainly is in their best interest to make money. So think about the messaging in the media. Think about the slants that all the channels have now with their political views. Every channel has it. Just think about where the messaging is coming from, all right? And figure out if it makes sense for you in terms of your feelings towards money, okay? What is your risk tolerance? There's a lot of risks out there. One of the things now, it's 2023, all right? Inflation risk is a big thing. Prices are going up. You're hearing about it in the news. Inflation. It will go back down, okay? But inflation risk, it erodes your purchasing power. Business risk is another risk, right? Companies go out of business all the time. They get bought, they get sold. Heard about banks going out of business recently. It happens, okay? Good and bad management decisions can impact your investments. Market rate risk, okay? Associated with market movements. Things go up, things go down. You hear about the Fed rate, they're raising their interest rates. That's a market rate risk. Liquidity risk. Are your investments liquid or illiquid? Are they tied up in real estate, which could take 2, 3, 4, 6 months to sell? Are they easily sold? Or are they just sitting in cash in your bank account? Okay. Financial risk. Okay. It's risk that the companies that you work with have a lot of debt and they can't pay it off. Right? See if that's a financial risk for them. And interest rate risk, again, higher the interest rate, the less a bond is worth. So as things are going up and changing, there's interest rate risk. Okay. Different types of risk, but you've got to figure out whether your tolerance is low or high. I put the high on here because, well, I'm a high risk person by definition, because I know that the long term is what I'm playing. And over time, I will hopefully be better off. Hopefully. Okay. Wealth accumulation. To pursue your future goals, start early and save consistently. Okay. Again, we're talking about wealth accumulation here. So I want to just run through a couple of examples that show the impact of saving and the timing of it, and the impact that time actually has on your ability to save money. So I'm going to put up a chart here. It's got 3 people on it. It's got John, Jane, and Bill. All right. J and J and B. So John, he had a good time in his 20s. So he didn't start saving for retirement until he was 33 years old. He saved $100 a month from 33 to 65, 32 years. He wound up assuming 7% annual rate of return, kept it invested in a good retirement account, $143,000. Pretty good amount. Jane, however, she was earlier in her savings. She only saved for 10 years, from 22 to 32, $100 a month. Okay, so instead of 32 years, 10 years. But she did it earlier. She winds up with $174,000. How is that possible? We'll talk about it. Bill, on the other hand, he was the slow and steady, I'm going to do this forever, 43 years, 22 to 65, $100 a month, 7% return, that's $329,000 in change. Who would you rather be, John, Jane, or Bill? $100 a month. Cup of coffee a day. Get a Keurig, don't go to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. Can make it happen if you really want to. All right. We're going to run through this. Even though John contributed 3 times the amount of money, Jane accumulated more by starting early. Okay. Again, we went over this. She got the benefit of 43 years of compounding versus only 32. That 10 years is a big deal. Start earlier. If you've got kids and you want to pay them a salary, start paying them a salary and put it in the retirement account. Okay. If you've got a job for them to do around the house, if they do a lawn mowing job, I don't know if kids do that anymore, but if they've got some sort of income coming in, put in a retirement account, you can make them millionaires. Okay. Again, this is only $100 for, 40 years. Multiply that and it goes up by a lot. Okay. Again, consistency over time though, but start early. You're going to get the benefits. All right. Wealth accumulation. As you put together your plan, it's important to have an understanding of your risk tolerance. You talked about this. Are you risky or are you risk averse? It's going to have an impact on your returns. Okay. Are you committed to seeing your strategy through? There's going to be good times. Hi, welcome to the 2000s and 2010s. Aside 2010s primarily, it went straight up. Now in the 2022, 2023 area, it's rocky. Are you going to be committed to it? Are you going to continue to put money in? If not, you got to reevaluate it. All right. And again, it's a long-term wealth accumulation strategy. Think about how you're going to do this over time, commit to it, and make sure it happens. Okay. Now we're going to go through the real world example. All right. This is based upon myself again. $50,000 in student loan debt with a required minimum monthly payment of $215. Student loan rate, which I have and still had at 3.25%. The payment started in the year 2000. All right. I got an extra $200 a month in my budget that I can put towards debt reduction, or I can invest in my 401k, 403b, IRA. 2 options. What do I do? All right. We're going to do a couple of assumptions because it's going to be easier to see the math and the numbers on this. So they're not the exact way in which it played itself out. Okay. We're going to assume the retirement plan is invested exclusively in the S&P 500. I would not recommend this. A diverse portfolio is usually better in performing than just exclusively in the S&P 500. However, for the purposes of an example, it satisfies. Plus, we're going to be able to look at the S&P actual returns from 2000 to 2023, and also from 1923 to 2023. So we've got numbers that are actually raw data that are the returns if you kept reinvesting, which is what you do in a retirement plan, okay, over time. We're going to also assume that the payments were made on a monthly basis. So every month, $200 either went to paying down your debt, or $200 went to putting investment in your 401k, IRA, 403b, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's the assumptions. Those are the game. That's the game that we're talking about. So let's take a look and see how it plays itself out. All right. And we're going to ask the question now, are you better off paying down debt or growing wealth? All right. So let's go with the paying down of debt first. All right. All right. Starting in 2000, we've got our two options here. All right. Starting amount of $50,000. Interest in both cases is 3.25%. Payment per month, $215. Or on the right, $415. Payment is going to last for 30 years and 8 months, or 368 months, if you do the $215 a month. Okay, which is why I still have student loan debt. On the other hand, if I had done $415 a month, I would have been done in 12 years and 3 months for 147 months. The total interest that I plan on paying, because I am on plan A of $215 a month-ish, is around $29,000. If I had paid off my student loan faster at $415, I would have paid $10,600 in interest. And in that red number, that means I'm going to pay an extra $18,400 in interest. Okay. I will be paying an extra $18,400 in interest. That is a fact. Okay. But we've also got to look at the investments starting in year 2000. So we're going to go with the average returns again for the S&P 500. The S&P 500 since 2000 is the average return is 6.71%. From 1923 to 2003, however, the return is 10.39. All right. Big difference. There's been a couple of things in the 2000s, the 2007 market crash, and then this past year with a 20% decline affected the returns. Okay. But we're doing this program. It's going to last probably another 10 years again. Right. So that's just the thought. So we'll take a look at it. And again, assuming that I've been investing no money and the difference, because I was putting all the $200 towards the debt or the entire month starting afterwards. Okay. So if I do a monthly investment of $200 per month, starting in 2000, I do it for 368 months, the same as the time period on the left, where I'm going to spend the $29,000 in interest. I wind up with an ending value in my account of $234,000 and $234,000-ish and change. Okay. Now, let's assume instead that I'm going to start investing the full $415 starting after 147 months. So I've paid down my debt, and now I start investing for the full $415 in a retirement account for 221 months. That comes out to about $177,000 in wealth at 6.71% return. All right. The difference is if I start in 2000 with the $200 exclusively the entire time, no additional money, I wind up with 234. If I start after month 147 and do 415, it's a bigger dollar amount. I wind up with 177. That is $57,000 more if I start paying just with the 200 over the full 30 years and 8 months. Okay. I wind up with $57,000 more, assuming a 6.71% return. Now we do the same thing, and let's assume we get that 10.39% return. Again, $200, 368 months, that's $481,000. 415 for 221 months, that's $261,000. That's $219,000 in difference based upon a 10% annual return for just not putting my money into my debt reduction. So bottom line, total difference. If I get a 6.71% return for the past 23 years, I am still going to wind up being $38,000 and change ahead by doing my investments as opposed to paying down my debt. Now, if we have the full 10.31%, the difference is a little over $200,000, which means my number is going to probably be somewhere between 40,000 and 200,000, probably in the $100,000 range, because I have more wealth because I have not been paying down my debt. Okay. That $38,000 is 57,000 minus the 18,400. Yes, more interest has been paid, but more wealth is there. Again, on the right-hand side with a 10.39% return, which would be astronomical. $219,000 in wealth minus the 18,400 leaves you with a little over $200,000 in total difference in wealth accumulation of paying down your debt longer over time. This makes sense if your interest rate is low. If you've got a credit card, however, that is 20%, the numbers blow up because the 20% is going to be bigger than the 6.7 or the 10.3. This is why if you have a mortgage now and it's 3.25, 2.75, you might want to consider not paying down that mortgage any faster than you have to. Stretch it out, 30, 40, 50-year mortgage. You'll wind up wealthier based upon the math and the numbers. So with that, you're probably going to have a lot of questions. Reach out to me, ask me some questions, contact me, let me know what your thoughts are. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you and exactly dig into the numbers of what your specific scenario is. Hopefully you've learned a lot about what a low interest rate payment can do and how you can leverage that debt if you can get past your feelings about debt, because it is a feeling thing. And I understand completely that sometimes it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But for me, it was only a couple $100 difference, right? I'm not worried about a $200 payment. If I am, I'm not doing this right. If you got any evaluation tips, let me know how I can improve. I'm always looking for feedback on how to be better. Okay. Aside from, not dropping my clicker in the middle of the presentation. I want to go through what you learned. Hopefully you've learned the definition of debt and wealth, right? Debt's what you owe. Wealth is what you have. Hopefully you've understood that you're not alone in your feelings about debt. Everyone has feelings about debt. Don't worry about it. You're not alone. Just realize you can get through it and get past it. Understand what your risk tolerance are. Are you risk averse? Are you okay to risk? Figure out how you feel about that. But again, know the consequence of your choices. See what that difference in returns brings you, right? I showed you a 6.71% return versus a 10% return. It was a couple $100,000 over 30 years. Big difference in the amount of money you have. Might want to assume some more risk in your portfolio to achieve the things that you want. All right. Talked about some methods to accumulate wealth, show the importance of a long-term perspective. And I bared my soul and gave you an example of what a real world could look like in terms of investing versus paying down debt. But I'll leave it to you. Make the choice that makes sense for you because it's your money. However, hopefully with this and some of the other videos here, you'll be able to make some better choices. So with that, once again, my name is Chris Shea. I'm a financial advisor with BPS Financial Services. And I'd like to thank you for your participation in this video and hope to see you around for some more of my financial education series.